I, Carumbus is the second episode of the 32nd season of The Simpsons. This is directed by Rob Oliver, and it seems to be generally well received. 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb, which is a pretty good rating. Honestly, I didn't really like it. It's not my kind of story, but there's nothing specifically wrong with it. So if you're interested in this kind of tale, I think you might like it. The family are at a history museum, and while there, they encounter somebody who tells them a story about a family in ancient Rome. And then, of course, on screen, we see this story being played out with various members of the Simpsons family and people from Springfield taking the role of the various characters. And Homer plays a character called Abesius, which I thought was actually a pretty good name. And I will say it's very well written. There are lots of small things here and there with the dialogue and the names for different things. I didn't write anything specific down, but I did think it was very well written. And it's all about the greed that he and his wife have and their rise to power and the problems that come with this. And it's an interesting enough story, but as I said, it's not for me. It's not my kind of tale. I was going to say I'm not a fan of the episodes where we have, flashbacks to ancient times in history, but there are a couple that are okay. But this one for me, I didn't care too much. I'm not that bothered about stories set in ancient Rome. There are exceptions out there, of course, but the point is, I actually think it's a well-written narrative, very well animated and very cleverly done, but it's not for me, so I can't say that I loved it. But if I try and find anything wrong with it, there isn't. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very well animated. The pacing is great. It doesn't cut back to the museum too frequently, so it doesn't feel like we're being pulled out of the story, but also it doesn't neglect that part completely. And I think it got the balance there really well. So all things considered, I, Carumbus, which is a brilliant title, is a good episode, but it's simply the case that it's not my kind of story, so it's never going to be a favourite. We have Michael Palin as the museum curator. I wish we saw a little bit more of that character, as I thought he was quite fascinating, but that's not really a complaint. It's more just a personal preference thing. Honestly, nothing wrong with it. I, Carumbus, all things considered, is a very well-written, well-animated episode. It's just not to my personal taste.